you love movies and movie discussions, you've come to the right place. Who am I, you ask? I am the Wiz! And I'm here to review the 1972 fantasy comedy, The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie, directed by Luis Bunuel. I know some of you are going to say something in the comments, or are going to mention something to me later on, and go, Wiz, you said this was about Mexican filmmakers? Luis Bunuel's not Mexican? And I would say, you're right. Let me explain how I got that wrong. I decided to do Mexican filmmakers this week, and instead of looking up Mexican filmmakers, I looked up best Mexican films. And when I got into a certain list, I forget the website, but there was a certain list about the 10 best Mexican films, and this site had number 1, The Exterminating Angel. And The Exterminating Angel is directed by Luis Bunuel. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, hold on. Luis Bunuel is a Mexican director? I didn't know this. Oh my god, I can finally watch The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie? I've always wanted to watch that. That's great. That's what I went with. I was like, all right, great. I'll watch that movie. And then I looked it up earlier today before I watched it, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of French people in this movie. I wonder if this was just made in... let me look at something real quick. Then I look up Luis Bunuel, something I probably should have done beforehand, and goes, Spanish filmmaker. I'm like, oh no. Oh no. And I look him up, and I look at his biography, look up some things about him. Turns out, he made films in Mexico. He made The Exterminating Angel and a bunch of other things, too. This is not one of them. This is a French film, which is why there's a lot of French people in it. So, yes, I'm well aware. I got that wrong. I am sorry. I got that wrong, too. So, this week, I guess, is just going to be a non-theme week. By accident. I'm reviewing this movie. I'm going to review Roma for Saturday, so that'll be the Mexican film for this week, and then we'll move forward with whatever else is going to happen. So, sorry about that. All right, so let's get into the review of The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie, directed by Luis Bunuel, and before that, let's get into the plot. I don't know what the plot really is about this film, if I'm gonna be completely honest. Sorry. I know, it's weird that I've watched a film that I don't know what the plot is, but that's kind of the point of the film. There's no plot. I guess the basic thing I could really say about the film is about these rich people who basically try to eat dinner or lunch and are unable to because absurd things happen that prevent them from doing so. And that is about it. That's all I got for you. So this is going to be one of those films where the plot really does not matter. And that's good because I don't know what the plot is. Sorry, guys. All right, so now that we got to the plot, we'll get to my 3 points. Okay, so because this is a very different film, I'm going to do the 3 points very differently this time. I'm going to tell you what the 3 points are right away, and the reason why is because I can't really get into specifics about the film without spoiling something. So, here are my 3 points about The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie. 1, it's an absurd comedy I know is funny, but didn't laugh all that much. I'll get to why. Number 2, an artistic film. I have ideas what it's about, but I have no idea if it's right. And 3, it's an interesting film that's hard to explain without spoiling what happens. I know, this is really hard to explain, but basically, the film is a very absurd film with a lot of crazy things that happen that doesn't really make much sense. People have dreams inside of dreaming about other people dreaming, and a whole bunch of other completely ridiculous things happen that doesn't really contribute to the plot other than setting up another sequence. You could call it, I guess, an anthology film of sorts, but that really wouldn't be right either. But what's weird about the film is that there are things about this film that's funny. But is it something that I, guffawed and laughed at hysterically? No. I just found the whole feel and watching the film to be utterly funny and ridiculous. If that's easy to understand. About it being an artistic film that I have ideas about what it's about, I think that's kind of the point of the film. It's a very interesting film when you're watching, you're trying to piece together, what is this film really about? And I've got some ideas. I just have no idea if that's right. I could look it up on Google. I kind of don't want to, but I guess we'll find out if I'm right or wrong. And yeah, it's a very interesting film, but if I really go into what happens in the film, it spoils the ridiculousness of the film itself. So I would much rather just keep it at that and let you discover it yourself if you choose to. Okay, so the next section would usually be the footnotes, but what I'm going to do in this section is instead do a section called It's About How the Rich. And what it is, basically, is my 3 guesses of what the film is about. So, here's my first guess. It is about how the rich are never satisfied no matter what they do, even though they have so much. Basically, the film kind of feels like these rich people seem to have everything they want, they could ever desire, and yet they want more, and they're completely dissatisfied, nitpicking, and trying to see what they can get more out of. It could be about literally anything in the film. That's kind of one of the themes I kind of discerned when I was watching. My second one is, it is about how the rich live in a logic that would be absurd to us. Basically, things happen in the movie where the rich, something they do is objectionable, or it just wouldn't make sense in our logic, but somehow it just works, and the film does not explain it. And I think the reason why it doesn't explain it, or it obscures what is actually happening, is because that's just kind of the logic of how they run. I am who I am, therefore you should just bend to my whim. Okay, sounds great. I think that's kind of what the film was kind of going for on that end. And the other one is, it is about how the rich care more about the least important aspects of their life than the vital aspects of life itself. Think about it in this sense, okay? If you're hungry, you want to eat, and nothing should stop you from eating unless of something dire. In this film, absolutely absurd things happen that prevent them from eating. And watching what happens is utterly ridiculous to watch, but I think it belies a bigger point where these people just seem to live in a world that just doesn't exist in our plane because we actually have to work for what we have to get. And they don't, so they're more concerned with more frivolous things where we are concerned with much more important things. Okay, so here are the footnotes for the Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie. My first footnote, I can't spell bourgeoisie for the life of me. I can't. I have typed this word in 7 or 8 times, and I still get it wrong. I still have to look it up to make sure I get it right, and when I look it up, I get it wrong. So that's just an annoyance, whatever. And the last footnote, the last time I have felt this way about a film is when I watched Last Year in Marienbad. That is a confusing film. That is a impenetrable film in certain points, but like this movie, I actually liked Last Year in Marienbad. I just couldn't completely explain what was going on because I didn't quite understand it. And this is the same way I feel about this movie, but it's certainly entertaining, and like Last Year in Marienbad, it's definitely something I definitely want to check out again at some point with a fresh set of eyes. Overall, I do recommend the Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie. I will say that the film looks good as well. I think it's shot very well. It is an absurd film. It is funny in certain aspects. It's very confusing at times. But I think it's also interesting with what they do in this film. Again, I don't want to get into specifics, but I will say, if something like this interests you, I would say definitely check it out. It is on the Criterion channel right now, so I would say check it out on there. So overall, I recommend The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie. Now, if you want my full review on this movie, you can go to my website at IamTheWiz.com. You'll have my full written review right on the site, along with a link to the video that has this review that you've just listened to. Thank you for listening to this review. If you want to know what we're reviewing in the next couple of days, you can look on the screen right now to see what's coming up next. If you like what you heard, go ahead and leave a like on this video. If you want to discuss your opinion on the film or the review itself, please leave a comment. And if you want to hear more, subscribe to the channel. Thank you again for listening. I will talk to you next time.